The artificial intelligence industry operates at a feverish pace. Competing labs sprint to push new, largely untested models into the public market, treating raw speed as their primary advantage. Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, presents a striking contrast. He publishes sobering, highly detailed essays rejecting this chaotic rush, warning his peers against behaving like reckless prophets. He actively points out the darkest potential outcomes of his own products. Amodei has openly documented how AI could permanently displace human labor and introduce severe vulnerabilities to national security. This radical openness makes Amodei an incredibly trusted figure in a notoriously opaque field. But we have to consider an uncomfortable question. Does accurately describing a danger actually protect us from it? This chart plots out AI capability over time, tracking Anthropic's core empirical claim. Their foundational thesis has proven true. Artificial intelligence is advancing on a steep, predictable curve, exactly as they documented years ago. To manage this trajectory, Amodei insists the government must step in. He calls for heavy regulatory gates, rigorous testing regimes, and the legal authority to block any AI deployment that fails them. Notice what happens to the market under those rules. Mandating massive testing infrastructure constructs a high barrier around the few labs wealthy enough to comply, keeping smaller competitors firmly locked out. Anthropic's candid warnings about AI happen to align perfectly with regulations that secure their corporate dominance. The safety case and the commercial advantage point in the exact same direction. In his Keystone Policy Framework, Amodei argues AI is advancing far faster than institutions can react, and that relying on corporate transparency is no longer a viable strategy. He suggests replacing that transparency with an agency explicitly modeled on aviation regulation. Powerful models would undergo mandatory third-party audits for biological and cyber risks before release. These strict rules would trigger at a specific compute threshold, a line drawn based on the total amount of raw computing power used to train a model. While asking for these limits, Anthropic released an internal report detailing how their own AI now writes the overwhelming majority of their engineering code. The report reads like a dire warning about machines building machines, but it functions perfectly as an advertisement of their superhuman speed. Inviting heavy regulation is the ultimate flex for a frontier lab. It tells the government and the market that Anthropic is the only company building something dangerous enough to warrant an off-switch. Testing powerful models before they reach the public sounds like an obvious win for society. But we have to look at the brutal economic reality of who can actually afford to follow those rules. An incumbent with billions in backing easily absorbs the massive costs of third-party audits and security regimes. Apply that exact same financial load to a lean startup, and they bounce right off, locking them out entirely. Whoever defines acceptable risk controls the default settings for the entire industry. By setting the price of admission, a safety protocol functions exactly like an impenetrable monopoly. In June 2026, the high-minded governance theory proposed in Amodei's essays violently crashed into real-world events. Regulators discovered a severe cyber jailbreak, a method to bypass safety restrictions hidden deep within Anthropic's most powerful public models. The U.S. government responded aggressively. Citing their national security authority, regulators immediately suspended the deployment of Anthropic's Fable 5 and Mythos 5 systems. This was the ultimate test of the company's philosophy. The government finally woke up, acted as the responsible adult, and grounded the plane exactly as Amodei had requested. Anthropic objected immediately. The company argued the forced suspension was disproportionate, claiming regulators had misunderstood the specific nature of the vulnerability. They spent months arguing for strong government authority in principle, but the moment regulators reached for the controls, Anthropic demanded absolute deference to their own judgment. During the fallout, Anthropic emphasized their mandatory 30-day customer data retention policy. They framed this as a vital security measure to detect attacks, though it conveniently locks out European developers who are legally bound by strict zero-retention privacy laws. Honesty about the risks of artificial intelligence is a public good, but candor is not a free pass. When a proposed safety architecture perfectly matches a corporate moat, we have to evaluate the rules on their actual merits. And when the leading labs ask us to wait while the government reaches for the off switch, we must ensure the public is the one actually holding it.